Off we go.
Off we go.
What flavor you got there?
Today we review, well, more importantly, this is what season of cold brew is this for you?
This is the beginning of cold brew season. Although I could run cold brew all year.
And how many seasons have you been doing it for?
Oh, this is round 2. Yeah, this is my second year. Pretty sure.
Coming out of your rookie season?
Maybe it's 3 years. I don't remember. No, I think this is my second year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do like it, though.
Yeah.
I don't do iced tea really
I'm going to
anymore.
pop a top for the people, but I'm going to focus on the cold brew.
I'm going to hit them both because I just can't ever seem to get enough caffeine. Doesn't matter.
We're going to, amongst other things, we're going to review Josh's cold brew today.
See the quality of product I'm putting out in the world?
Yeah.
The free product?
You know, the interesting thing about cold brew, and I'm probably one of the few that fall into this category, but if I consistently drink hot, regular coffee, eventually my stomach starts to, I don't know how to describe it other than feel weird. Like
Acid?
Yeah. It feels acidic.
Me too.
And I don't think that happens to too many other people, but for me, it's consistent. It's like maybe after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'll start to feel it. But if I switch to a cold brew, that doesn't happen. So,
yeah, well, the process is different. If you don't heat up the water that goes through the bean, it doesn't create the acid. So that's part of the allure, which I enjoy. Like I've never gotten like that acidy kind of bit out of any cold brew I've tried.
Right?
At any kind of coffee I've tried too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. That's just good.
Yeah, it's good. It's got it's like a more mellow, got a more mellow aftertaste.
Well, it is definitely higher in caffeine too because
that's what I thought.
It sits in the water a lot longer, right? So you're just running hot water through grinds, right, and then right out into the bowl or whatever, the pot.
Yeah.
This sits for like 3 days.
Yeah.
Like you fill it. I have a 5-gallon. It looks like a 5-gallon bucket, but it's actually a official brewing thing.
Yeah.
Got bags and whatnot, and you use like 3 pounds of coffee in a 5-gallon bucket, and you end up with 3.5 gallons of cold brew traditionally.
So 3 pounds yields you 3.5 gallons? Is that what you said?
Yeah, and it's a concentrate too. So traditionally you would cut it with water. Dilute it, which I diluted this a little bit, but as your ice melts, you're going to get diluted too. So this is probably only 10%, 20% diluted.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little strong. But if it sits here and we talk and that ice melts, it'll get more diluted.
Yeah, it is. It's got some kick, but it is mellow. It's not.
I enjoy it.
It's not bitter.
So
that's the word.
Did you hear the most epic news of all time? James proposed to Brianna.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
I did see that.
Young James.
And then, yes, congratulations.
Finally throwing it off. Congratulations to the happy couple. Way to go.
In James fashion, he puts it on the internet.
Of course he did. Yeah. Framed it up nicely. The whole bit. Probably got out the DSLR for it, too.
That didn't look like a camcorder.
No, that was probably the DSLR. That was professional. Wow. So the question is, and we should ask everyone to go back and watch it. It's on his Instagram, which is it was very nice.
It's very nice, yeah.
Did she know or not? Like, was it staged and they redid it?
I don't think she knew.
I don't think she knew. I'm pretty sure that was live. I think he told her he was going to be doing something else, which I haven't talked to him. I texted him, but I haven't talked to him yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, see the outcome of that. She looked pretty shocked, which is cool.
Yeah. What a cool spot to do it.
Yeah.
What a legendary spot.
Yeah, he told me he was planning to do that a little while back, and I'm like, right on, dude. Let's see if you go through with it. Attaboy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what I told him. I was like, well, who the hell else is going to put up with your ass? With the crazy life that you lead, man. You know, she seems to be bought in, so.
And because as most people probably remember when they propose, they probably feel like, oh, yeah, I wasn't that nervous or whatever. Because you know how our memories actually work versus what really happens.
Oh, yeah.
And you could see James is a little nervous there for sure.
He was.
Which is cool. Like, I don't know. I thought that was really neat that he put that on the internet. And it was cool. It was real. And
yeah, well, I don't think he holds his life back from the internet at all.
Yeah.
Like, he just...
It's kind of neat.
This is my life. Here it is. Just a happy, fun bunch. Wonder what's his next catchphrase going to be? Because God, he's always got a new one every 3 to 6 months.
I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So,
well, shout out to the happy couple in Hawaii right now.
Congrats, guys. Well, I don't know if they're still there or not, but I know they were coming back pretty quick. But yeah, it's nice. Well, so we got questions today.
Yeah, we're every once in a while we'll rip one of these pods off. That's a Q&A. And to be honest, I'm typically, I don't want to say I'm not a fan of question and answers. I just think sometimes question and answers get done when people feel like they have nothing to talk about. like they don't have a good idea. That's not the case here. I think in our situation, we don't know what you don't know, and every time we do one of these, like when we're done with it, I'm like, wow, that was cool. Like I don't. You don't know what they don't know, right? Or what we don't know. You know what I'm saying? If any of that makes sense.
Where do I go to find the questions?
Sounds like Inception. I got them here.
You got them? All right.
Yeah.
What are you even watching?
Okay, we're going to lead off with just an absolute heater. J.R. Cavins says, is 80 pounds worth it? Question mark.
Depends on your draw length, honestly. If you're like over 30 inches, no. And the reason I say that is, in my personal opinion, I believe that using 80 pounds gains you benefit if you don't end up increasing a massive amount of arrow weight for it. And once you get past that 80-pound threshold, at 30 inches or longer, your arrows are so long that you end up needing like a 200 spine arrow in a lot of instances. And the 200 spine arrows in almost any category are super duper heavy. The HLR is not bad. It's under 10, but almost everything's like 10, 11, 12. And it's like, well, you're not going any faster. You're just gaining energy. I'm all for it if you can gain some speed while gaining energy, but if you're not gaining any energy or gaining any speed or losing speed, because I'm still an advocate for speed kills. I still think the biggest factor is the animal moves before your arrow gets there, so get it there quicker. That's just how I feel. So it's worth it if you're comfortable with it and your draw length is not 30 inches or beyond 30 inches.
Yeah,
I think.
And you'd have to get real specific if you wanted to dive into that, because you need to know, well, what are you hunting? Are you hunting grizzly bears or are you hunting pronghorn?
Well, and how much tip weight you really want to use and what FOC you're trying to get to and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're factoring that at all. If you're not factoring it, then
yeah, at the
you
end of
don't
the day,
care.
I think people highly underestimate the value of nice tip weight. But no, 80 pounds,
Nice tip weight.
a very nice tip weight. It's one of those things, what are you hunting? You know?
Sure.
What are you hunting? And if we look back to history and say, okay, what are these legendary hunters hunting with? You're not going to find many whitetail hunters that hunt with 80 pounds.
No.
Right? Most of them are actually like 65, around that, because you got to be able to pull your bow back and you want to be able to hold your bow. Now, if you go into the elk hunters of the world, a lot of legendary elk hunters would use more weight because you're lubed up. You know, it's 90 degrees out, 70 degrees out. You're standing, you're active.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to pull your bow back. Now, you reverse that and you say, okay, and now I'm dressed up like the Michelin Man. I got 1,000 layers on. It's 0 degrees outside. 80 pounds is hard to pull and hold. So
I agree. There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was actually listening to Iron Will Bill on Dan's podcast, and Iron Will Bill was talking about aiming towards the shoulder a little bit because he says there's more forgiveness if you do get your arrow in. And I was like, you know what? If that's your strategy, you should probably hunt with 80 pounds if you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and every animal's different too. A lot of that's going to be dictated by the kind of animal you're hunting.
Yeah, they were talking about elk. Yeah.
Yeah, elk, I could see it then because there's not a lot to get through right there. Honestly.
Yeah.
So I get the purpose of going more towards the shoulder, which is more the Vital V Ranch Berry philosophy.
Yeah.
Right. But I would definitely be more cautious on what kind of broadhead you choose to use in that scenario.
For sure.
For sure.
So Captain.Texas says, get MFJJ to talk about guns and the crossover between all precision projectile sports. I think this is an interesting question. And here's what I want to know from you before we dive into this is why isn't anybody aiming with crosshairs in archery?
That's a really good question, actually.
Because for me, okay, I put crosshairs on something, I'm going to put it on exactly where I want to hit. I put a pin on something, I'm going to put it just under what I want to hit so I can see what I'm aiming at. Yep. Just as if I were aiming down iron sight 22.
Yep.
And I just felt like, why the fuck aren't there crosshairs that are either wide enough or far enough out that you can aim with? And if I'm aiming with those, I'm putting them exactly on what I want to hit.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the philosophy of using a crosshair in that scenario, which I'm not sure if that's what his question is, but I love the crosshair personally, but they can't figure out how to get a small lit reticle. So part of the reason why you'll see a scope with crosshairs and a bow with a pin is because it's magnified. So you're blowing up what you're looking at, so the crosshair isn't so big. You can't make that crosshair small enough. to when you go to put it over
Fine enough.
fine enough.
Yeah.
And have it be, durable for any means. And you can't light it. You
Right.
can't use electrical. Fiber optics, the only thing you can put in for a decent portion of the states, not all of them, but a decent amount, don't allow electrical stuff. So now you've got, how do I see the reticle in low light? I think that's more the amazing crossover as far as that question is concerned, outside of your crosshair question, if that's what you were angling at.
Yeah.
A crap ton of people that do long distance archery do long distance rifle. They're the same premises.
Yeah.
And first time I went out to Dougie's range, I saw 75% of the people I knew from the shop.
Yeah.
That actually came in and bought stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty wild to me, the crossover, and I think there's an immense amount of it. I have long distance rifle stuff, like multiples. I have like 4 or 5 guns that are set up for shooting a long distance. I think they're super similar principles, and well, Matt's a great example. Matt's a great archer and he's winning tournaments, long distance rifle stuff.
Yeah.
I think the rules are very similar and the disciplines are very similar, and it's the same customer. I've actually thought about dabbling into that side of the market because so many of them are the same customer that's shopping with you anyway.
Well, I think it's a little bit of a personality-driven thing. Is like, do you like that kind of attention to detail, to be able to work really hard at something that's difficult? Mm-hmm. And I think those types of people are drawn to similar sports.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Do really good long-range shooters in rifle, do they punch the trigger or do they squeeze it?
That's a good question.
That's a good question for
That's
Doug.
a good question.
I bet you they do both.
I bet you just like archery, there's a crossover percentage of both.
Yeah, I bet you they do both. Yeah. Okay. Okay, 2 great questions coming up. Twig with 2 G's, Woodcraft, says torque tuning your bow. How to and necessity of doing so. So I guess the question is basically
how do you do it?
important is torque tuning, and then how do you go about it if you want to do it?
So there's a percentage of torque tuning that requires you to have a certain level of skill and your ability to be able to identify what's going on. Bomar just put out a good video explaining how to do this. So if you want to understand how to torque tune, go watch his video. It was very good. The premise of it is you can use your rest and you can use your sight to move the sight in or out as you apply pressure left or right in your shot. So what that means, you set up at 40 yards, you sight on your bow for 40 yards, everything's dialed, and you grab your bow and tweak it all the way left and shoot a group, tweak it all the way right and shoot a group.
Yeah, so Josh is referring to actually moving your hand on the grip.
your left hand that's holding the bow if you're right-handed.
So you're putting pressure on the left side of the grip or pressure on the right side of the grip.
Yes, to physically torque the bow left or torque the bow right. And then move the sight out 1 indent and do it again. And then move the sight out 1 indent and do it again. Or if you've got it stuck out to bring it back, this would be a dovetail sight. Most of the bows that I've ever tried doing this with, they end up being pushed all the way together for the most part to find the most accurate point. And you can do the same thing with the rest. You slowly move it forward, slowly move it back. That's part of the allure to the rest that Bodie uses, the AAE one.
AAE Prophecy.
It's got the Prophecy. They make one that's got a bracket that you can like click indently back and forward, or the QAD spring steel. It can move forward and backward, micro driven. So you can finitely make those adjustments to try to get those to hit the same spot. And it does work. You just have to have enough ability yourself to be able to see it. Like if your grouping doesn't appear like it's changing or like it's getting better, it's probably a physical issue of yourself. Torque tuning does work if your equipment allows for it. Unfortunately, a lot of the equipment that we're dealing with today, i.e. integrated rests, integrated sights, etc., eliminate the ability to move them in and out. So it's something you find way more common in target stuff, way less common in hunting stuff. So, your equipment will dictate that. You'll have to have the ability to do that. So
I was able to find that torque tuning at 20 yards with my target bow, was able to bring my bad shots closer in. Michael and I did that one day. He's like, well, have you torque tuned this? I was like, no, not really. He's like, well, you should. Let's do it. So at 20 yards, I did exactly what you're describing. And it just, if it's well done, it's making your worst shots closer to center, right?
exactly.
Like your best shots are still going to be your best shots, but
Yes.
your furthest shots might be closer to center based on some torque or whatever.
Yeah. And so it's worth trying and seeing if you can identify a difference.
Especially if you have a shitload of time or whatever, or
Yeah.
the equipment to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be one reason to have one of those long ass sights, because you can't move your rest too much with most hunting setups.
Yeah, most of your new attachment systems don't allow for it,
Yeah.
so it might encourage people to go back to a different kind of system.
All right, Joel.Kneebomb12 says, "What are your opinions on the Whisker biscuit?" And that's Joel Neubauer.
That's Neubauer.
Neubauer, the one
I was gonna say that's Joel.
Yeah, what are your opinions on the? But this is a really good question, because this is a chunk of equipment that doesn't get talked about a lot, and there's a lot of people using it.
Contrary to popular belief, the Whisker biscuit, I think, actually does work very well if you use the right equipment in it. That's the snag or the snafu, and why I don't use it. Your fletchings need to be relatively straight fletched.
Yeah.
And they need to be relatively stiff, durable, and applied well. Because as they go through those bristles, the veins get all warped. So I would be using like a tack vein or a heat vein, or one of those that's really, really, really stiff and really durable. Tack vein, if you can get it to stick going through the biscuit, I don't know if they have issues with that. Since we honestly don't do hardly anything with biscuits, so it's not a thing I've had a whole bunch of feedback on which ones truly work. I know the heat veins stick really good and will typically work well, but do not try to helical them. And if I was going to use a biscuit style, I'd probably try to find one that had openings in it and not a full ring.
Yes.
The newer versions of the Whisker biscuit look like it'd be a little more forgiving in that regard, but you're still going to be shooting basically a straight fletch. And I've seen such improvement with helical personally that it's hard for me to go to that. But when working correctly and not in a wet, frozen environment, it does work well. And it's relatively affordable, and it's easy to tune. Like there's reasons why that's so popular, right? If you're down south or back east and shooting stuff out of a tree stand at 20 yards, it's idiot proof. Like load it, fire it, never fails, no moving parts, nothing to break. Like, so I understand why they're popular where they're popular at. It's just not something you're going to see a ton in Western hunting. And it's not because it's not accurate, it's because you can't put helical on the fletching to help offset stabilization issues.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a break-in period with the Whisker biscuit too, right? Like when you first get them, they're real stiff and louder, and then as you shoot them a little bit, they soften up and they make less noise. So there's a little bit of a break-in period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Baby Bob 3113 says, "Which new flagship bow would you recommend for a first-time target bow buyer at 29-inch draw length?"
Which one? First time. Well, is there a budget at all? Like, are we looking for?
It said no budget.
Honestly, I have a hard time not recommending the title. I know Matthew's guys coming out of the woodwork. Oh, he's a shill, whatever. It's super user friendly. It's very easy to change your tuning wielding. But I just built a 34 the other day. Been shooting it. I shot it yesterday a bit. Freaking stable bow, just really stable platform. But the allure to it, especially for a new person, is you can change your let off, you can change your poundage, you can change your length. And as you start shooting in the target realm, you are likely to change all of those things over time. And they change it via modules, so it's crisp and specific.
It doesn't change your tune too,
It does,
right?
and it does change your tune if you're changing your length, because the wheeling would be different.
Okay, yeah.
If you're operating under the same length, just a different poundage or a different let off, allowing you to change your poundage as you go without manipulating the limb, I think it's a better system personally. And I don't know anybody who will argue with you. I'm sure someone will comment down below that it's not the most stable feeling bow, left to right. Like that limb set is so wide that it's super, super easy to not torque.
No, I would disagree with that. That it is pretty stable left to right because of the fat limbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just a wider limb set. I think you could achieve the same thing with a skinny limb if you just move the limb pocket out farther. But I think it's how wide that limb pocket is that's creating that, personally. Because it's just like you grab it and it's like hard to torque. It's physically hard to torque.
Yeah, I found something kind of interesting the other day. I picked up my my former PSE. Was it Super or Super Axe?
Super X.
Oh, yeah, I had the Super Axe in the long dong version. And I just shot it a little bit in the middle of summer, and it did have quite a bit of weight on it, but I felt like, particularly after shooting the dart and for some amount of time, like the way I pulled into those stops definitely felt like it was just like there was more micro vibration there. So for me, I bet you apples to apples that I probably would hold the dart and considerably better just because of the way I pull into the stops and the way the bow feels and holds and reacts. Now, some of that you could argue is like, oh, I've gotten confident with the darting or whatever, but I just think I picked that thing up, ripped a couple arrows through it, and I was like, wow, this just doesn't feel that good anymore. The way you pull into the stops,
Yeah, when you immediately see a difference in it,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, and it wasn't a small difference. It was like a real thing.
Yeah.
C Larson _99 says, stand clicker index finger release or thumb button release for elk hunting.
Both are quite good. It's very hard to beat a wrist strap style release for hunting.
Yeah.
It's just so user friendly. It really is. So I can't say no to it because it does operate well. It does operate the mechanisms in your brain good. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
It's always on your wrist.
It's small, it's light, it's fast acquisition.
I think accidental discharge is a lot easier with a thumb button than it is with a
I agree.
index.
Well, yeah, you put your finger behind the trigger when you draw it back. You
Yeah.
just got to keep your thumb off of the button on the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of pluses to an index.
In fact,
there just is.
I'll tell you a quick side story on that. I was on my New Mexico elk hunt that I did a couple years ago. I was kind of coming down the final couple days. I was ready to shoot anything. I had a satellite bull come trotting down the field, happily, tongue out, slobbering to me. I came to full draw, and I was so ready to stroke this thing at like 30 yards, and I accidentally discharged my bow with a thumb button, and my arrow went into Never Never Land, and so did that bull.
Nice.
So I've actually had a couple accidental discharges in a hunting situation with a thumb button.
You know, I'm proud of you for admitting that to the public.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's good on you, buddy.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Not a lot of men would acknowledge that.
No, it's a real thing. Yeah. And one that's preventable. So
100% preventable.
I like preventable with practice and preventable with equipment. I like the index. It's always on your finger. But I think Joel Turner has a saying that I think is actually really powerful. I didn't understand it when he first said it, but he said, I've heard him say that you should shoot the release that you can best evaluate.
Yeah.
And in the heat of the moment, you want to be able to feel and evaluate what's going on. So whatever release helps you do that. If you execute better with your thumb, that's fine. I know for me personally, if I get a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, I start to lose feeling in my thumb.
Yeah.
I really do. And then I have to start squeezing my hand like this, and it just doesn't, it's harder for me to evaluate personally. But
Makes sense.
I think that's something that we can all figure out on our own.
Yeah, struggles with releases are like a real thing. I've been there's one I've been playing with recently, and I've been fighting it a lot. And I finally put it down yesterday and grabbed my axis, and just all of a sudden everything just was so much smoother. And like, God, it's funny, you don't think about it too much until you actually really give it time, and then go back to something that you felt really comfortable with and just do. Which is why James is using a 25-year-old release. Apparently, he's gotten like 3 of them sent to him recently that people have found.
Oh, that's cool. How do you say
Yeah,
that?
he put the word out. He's like, hey, I will buy this from anywhere or any person if you can find this exact release. Because, dude, I had that same release when I was 15. Like, he's using a release I owned when I was 15 years old. I'm 46. Like, but it was clean, and so I get it. It was a good release. I dug through all my crap trying to find it for him. I couldn't find it anywhere. The only one I had was a newer version of it that I think I got when I was like 18 or 19.
Yeah, if anyone was going to have one, it was probably going to be you stashed away somewhere.
Yeah, well, I'm typically not sentimental. I usually get rid of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not just going to hang on to it. So,
Backcountry Blades says, have you had good results with DCA saber veins fletched from an Arizona mini jig?
yeah, that's primarily what I've put mine through. I've had great results with it. They claim it's too much helical, though. But the mini, I think, is fine. The full saber is too much. But they would probably tell you different. You probably need a little less helical.
Yeah.
I've built most arrows that I've used in the last 2 years since that vein came out with that.
Yeah.
That being said, I may start using a different vein, but I've been pretty happy with that one.
Yeah, I have a couple dozen arrows built with that vein on it. And I feel like veins are a bit like style of underwear. Like you can choose one, but is it really going to make a difference? I don't know.
Well, there's supposedly a big old study that Easton did that would tell you it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's
Well, we gotta
interesting.
see, yeah.
I'm still waiting for those results unless I missed it.
I do think it's going to make a difference with something like wind drag. I think wind drag and then the amount that it probably creates spin or drag on your arrow. Mm-hmm. But at the recreational level, like, popular vein to popular vein to popular vein, like, there's probably not going to be a difference for the recreational shooter.
Yeah, probably not. Well, it depends. There could be, but in general, no. I would say you're probably really not going to see a difference.
And will that make a difference of if it's a good shot flying at your target at 20, 30, 40 yards? Mm-hmm. Probably not.
What would probably make a bigger difference is just practicing a little bit more
Right.
often with the same stuff.
Exactly.
Go shoot your bow.
Yeah. Now, if you're pronghorn hunting in the West and you got 30-mile-an-hour winds and you're making an 80-yard shot and you have 4 big fat veins on the back of your arrow,
probably not great.
Yeah, your arrow might drift twice as much as if it had 3 skinny veins. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a real thing.
It is.
So,
it is. But then you got to go back to, should you be shooting that shot to begin with?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Grayson _elder_ says, any advice for OTC out of state elk/deer hunting? Would you stick to one area? I'll speak to this because I've done a little bit of it. There are people who have done more. I think out of state hunting is really romantic. You should decide what kind of hunt you want to do and then look towards that kind of hunt. Do you want to be in the prairie? Do you want to be in the sticks? Do you want to have the chance at something really big, or do you want to have the chance at just an animal? I think it very much depends on what you are looking for. But if you want to build consistent success year over year, revisiting the same areas, assuming that the deer population or elk population isn't going down, you should be revisiting the same areas, because I think there's something really powerful about getting to know an area versus the romance of going somewhere new all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, grass is always greener on the other side. But when you continually go back to the same spot, you develop a lot of knowledge of the area, the terrain, the best paths to get to certain areas within that terrain. And when you don't know that, you spend so much time just trying to figure out an area.
Yeah, and just how to get into places and road systems and...
Yeah, you're realistically going to burn 3 or 4 days figuring that out.
Yeah.
Before you ever find animals, most likely. I mean, you might just pop into the right spot and go, oh, this is awesome. Or if you're going to an OTC place that you have feedback from another person, like, hey, I've been here, go here, go here, go here. That's helpful. But if without that, it's if you have the time to go out and go scout it, figure out the terrain, maybe go camping for a long weekend or something in the area, at least try to figure out the road systems and how you're going to get from A to B to C to D.
Yeah.
Right. Those options, that would be wiser. There's a whole bunch of research that you can do on Google Earth to help when you understand how to navigate it and all the layers that exist to help you figure out what it's like in years past. I know, if you're going to do OTC in different states, I would really strongly encourage anybody to take Mark Livesey's course of e-scouting and understand all the tools and resources that you have, because you can spend a whole bunch of time in your underwear on your computer figuring out where in that area you want to go and what options exist. I mean, you can go back and look at, years past in certain times, see how many friggin' rigs are parked at a trailhead. Like, how popular is this area?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much you can do when you start to really learn how to do that. And if you're going to be an OTC guy for states that you're not familiar with, that is the most valuable time you could probably spend. Because you're never going to know how many people are going to be at that trailhead that looks good. And you can actually go back and look at it on Google Earth, which is wild.
Yeah. And one powerful thing you can do with that pre-research too is you can figure out where not to be.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out where not to be, you can spend more times being wherever the animals are.
Even as far as just being able to identify where you should try to locate from.
Yeah.
Like that does so much that I never realized. You can go put a spot on the hillside and look at what you can see.
Yeah.
And go, hey, where's your sound going to go?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm calling from here, what can even hear me?
Yeah.
It's amazing. So, his course is really valuable. I might try to bring him in to each shop every year.
Yeah.
And try to do that. I mean, it's expensive, but geez, you're going to learn so much. Like, my mind was like, ugh, and I haven't done a ton of that, but I'm doing more of that. So I need to learn just like you guys.
Steve Sherrard 12 says, adjusting bow balance, i.e. back bar, etc., to affect holding left to right, even if the bubble is level. I thought this is kind of an interesting question before, because I've always struggled with leveling out my bubble, but it sounds like maybe his hole just has bias. Maybe the pin floats on and then floats off to the right consistently. What do you think about that?
When it's a hunting bow, I try to get it to balance.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't try to have bias in the handle. I know a lot of target people shoot with bias in the handle, and I don't disagree with it. I understand what they're doing, and the purpose of it is just to make you push harder into the bow itself, which helps steady the bow out. But when your footing sucks and your angles are weird and is uneven terrain and things like that, I kind of just want the bow to sit level. So I'm not fighting getting it level so much, because when you do shoot with bias, it takes longer to get the bubble level. And it's harder. I think it's harder to keep it there. And that's the thing I notice the most when I'm hunting, especially shooting farther away. I want my bow to be balanced. That's just me, though. I'm different.
Yeah. Yeah. And your bars are one of those things where it's pretty low risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can kick your bar out, kick it in, kick it up, kick it down, and you might change your point of impact a little bit. It's unlikely it's going to change your tune unless you're making really severe weight adjustments, and then it can actually change your tune. But it's pretty low risk. So when you hear people talk about, oh, try it and see what happens, like try it and make some notes, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, play it. Worst thing you can do, play with it and find out. You're not going to hurt anything. Just make sure you mark where it was, move it back there. Mm-hmm. If you don't like what it did. Not super complicated.
Matt Perrin 54 says, hog reveals. Give the people what they want. Now, I don't know if Matt's referring to like the kind of hog that we talked about in college, which might have been, a plus size.
Hog reveals? Yeah. Dude, skip on. What are you doing?
Maybe a plus size lady.
Well, that's what he's talking about.
Or the actual hog that, you pack around day to day. But either way, it's not happening on this
Either way, they
podcast.
sound inappropriate.
Very inappropriate. Gosh, what a great Instagram handle right here. Dust in the Wind 92. Dust in the Wind _92 says, ground hunting versus stand/saddle hunting.
Well, it depends on for the animal, but anybody who's really spent a decent amount of time doing both will tell you that if you can get up off the ground and sit still, you're going to see more animals. As long as you're in a decent spot. You're just going to, walking around, you're going to scare more animals. So, but most people don't have the patience.
Well, I think you might have been referring to maybe ground blinds as well.
Yeah, sitting still in one spot with wind controlled that's active, like that you've got trails going into here where there's animal activity, right? As long as it's relatively fresh, you're always going to see more animals that way. Mm-hmm. You might not, pinpoint the one animal that you're chasing around, but if you sit in a ground blind or a tree stand or a saddle. Oh, so hold on, is the question ground blind versus saddles?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, gosh. I thought you were talking about like running around. Getting elevated is always going to control your wind better than being on the ground. Being in a ground blind, you can contain your scent relatively good, but your scent patterns are still on ground level. So you run more of a risk there. A lot of animals don't look up. Certain animals do. Certain, like whitetail, are used to getting hunted in trees now. But most other animals aren't. So in general, if you go up enough, they won't look up at you unless you make a whole bunch of noise. In general, they don't look up. So I would suggest stands or saddles over ground blinds or towers. If you can get off the ground like 6 foot, 10 foot up and still be in a blind, now we're talking the same game. The majority of animals, once again, outside of whitetail, is if you get up off the ground to when they look straight, they can see through it. I don't think they react at all. Now, I will also interject that a well-placed ground blind, brushed in well, and it's been there for a week or two, they dismiss it in general.
Yeah.
And if you're in a ground blind and you run an ozone generator or that sort of thing, I think you can get away with murder if you scent contain yourself and put that out. So I guess this depends on how loud of a ground blind setup we're talking about versus tree stand. It's harder to contain your scent with an ozone generator when you're a tree stand or a saddle. When you're in a box and there's only like one main output of odor, it's very easy to contain it, which is where ground blinds really shine. I personally prefer ground blinds because I think you can get away with more. But if you can get that ground blind 6 feet up or 10 feet up off the ground, I think that's the ultimate.
Yeah. I think both have their utility. both have their utility. I think one thing that gets often overlooked is when you're shooting from the ground, your odds of a double lung are much higher.
Oh yeah.
Much higher.
Yeah, your kill window's a lot smaller when you're up in a tree.
Yeah.
Like you don't think about it until you do it and have shot a couple of animals out of it. But the ability to hit both lungs turns into like a 3-inch window instead of like a 10-inch window.
Yeah.
It's a lot smaller. Like a flat level shot is more lethal.
Yeah. I think being up elevated tends to be a better hunting situation. I kind of like being on the ground. It's pretty intimate. But, both work.
I think it's really hard to beat 6 to 10 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Like that's in that area. You're still getting mostly a flat shot. Yeah, it's a little bit of an angle, but you're only losing like an inch or so. I think that's the ticket personally.
Yeah, and I know a lot of really good whitetail hunters that they like being way up.
That's for scent control, though. It's for scent control and not getting looked at.
And not getting looked at, yeah.
Yeah. But if you're in a box that they can't see you in, who cares if they look at you?
Right. Scotty B05 says, is Truth Archery legit? I don't know much personally. I know that I've seen a little storm of social media stuff, which tells me one thing that's pretty interesting is like the market's probably ready for another bow brand, or they're thirsty for something. Is Truth Archery it? I don't know because I know very little about the bow.
I got one right over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna review it here real quick. But here's what I don't know, and I can't get an answer because I've been trying to call like Martin.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's incredibly similar to the same thing in Martin and has the same designer.
Okay.
So but it's not Martin at all. And I've deliberately not looked at it. It's sitting in a box because I want to be authentic when I pull it out and look at it and try to cover what's going on here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm intrigued to know the tuning system itself. I'm real curious how it's not like a patent violation of Bowtech's. I understand how Matthews isn't, and I looked at Athens and said the same thing. I don't understand how this isn't going to be a violation. And it's a brand new company, like straight up brand new company. And the head engineer is Kevin Struther, which Kevin was the engineer for Martin and Obsession. I think it's Obsession. If I remember right, like he's designing their cams, and the tuning system is K-Set, which is Kevin's design. And he's had patent violation issues in the past. So I guess, I would just keep that as a caution of, hey, is this, am I going to end up with another Athens bow here that I can't get parts for? Because if you bought an Athens bow, you can't get it fixed if it breaks now, which usually hurts your value in the long run. And you can go back and research the engineer guy. He's been involved in, I want to say 8 different bow companies now or something like that. I'd have to go back and do a count on it. But he's had a couple of bow companies that started up and went away. So I'd just be cautious. I don't know if it would be a first-year purchase for me. If I was a consumer, I'd probably want to see if it sticks around a little bit before I ended up sticking my neck out on that. But I don't know. There's I don't understand that specific individual's involvement and how there's been a whole bunch of controversy about those things over year, but he's still out there designing.
Right.
So maybe it's all fluff. Maybe it's all BS. I don't know. But I do know that that I can answer this question a little better after I play with it.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think that wraps that pretty well. NH Davis _ says, since the Virtue came out, is magnesium risers the future? Will carbon be phased out?
Well, I think we've hit on this before, but I'll freshen it up. It's a machined product, from what I understand. The process that they use in this is machined, which also goes right back to the Truth, because that's magnesium.
Okay.
Most of these manufacturers that make bows have machinery. Like they're making their own risers. Somebody else isn't making them. Now, the Truth, somebody else might be making those risers. I don't know. But in general, the manufacturers that are in this industry currently own machinery for machining product. Okay? So it's only logical in my mind that that's the direction they would go because it is lighter. And I think it's been proven multiple times that a magnesium riser ends up being lighter than a carbon riser in general. And Bowtex did really good on vibration, if I remember right, and noise. Whereas a lot of the carbon bows I've tested have been quite a bit louder on the decibel meter. So my initial gut is yes, I do think that that's where we're going. And I think that not necessarily because it's a better option, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's only logical that brands that already own machining equipment that want to make something lighter would gravitate towards that over carbon because you can't just machine carbon. The Elite, the Bowtech, and the Hoyt are all made overseas. I believe it's China, but I'm not positive. Like PSC is the only one making a carbon bow in the U.S. that I'm aware of, and they have an incredibly hard time keeping employees long enough to produce those bows, and they can't produce them in the speed in which they want to produce them. So there is a very large problem with making a carbon bow. So logically, if you can use equipment you already have, make a lighter bow, and not have to like employ different people to do the same thing, it would only make sense that they would go that way. But you also have to ask yourself, how light do you want your bow? Because you go buy one of those bows that's 3.5, 3.7, and you're going to put a bunch of weight on it.
Right.
Because it's not going to point. I personally think we've kind of hit the perfect metric right at that 4 pound mark. Like I think an overall bow that weighs 4 pounds is just really better suited. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm anxious to see other brands embrace that and see what they make it look like and how they make it work. But I haven't seen a bent one. And I haven't seen one fail yet. And those risers have been around. Like the Expedition has been making that mag alloy style material. I think everyone uses a different combination of materials to make the magnesium alloy things, but Expeditions has been around for multiple years, and I haven't heard the failure issues. Excuse me. And as carbon evolved, some of the earlier stuff we did have issues. Like we saw ones that failed or didn't hold together or tweaked over time. I think they've resolved most of that in general, but we have seen it. So I think I'm really anxious to see how that evolves.
Yeah, I think the magnesium thing, the machining thing is interesting because if you're already into machining and there's a new metal or a new material that you can machine, the crossover is too big to avoid, you know? So even if you said carbon and magnesium are comparable, whether they might not be or be, if they were similar, you think a lot of companies would trend towards magnesium because they could work with it.
Yeah, I think I'm sure there's a cost thing there, right? Like a machinable magnesium alloys. Because I know that originally when magnesium existed in the industry, it was like a long time ago. There were still some molded things, but it was molded. It was not machined. So I'm not sure what happened or what changed to get to the point that they can cut them with a machine, or how much they had to mess with the metallurgy to get something that you could actually machine. And when you look at the Virtue, it doesn't have as many cuts, and they're not as fine, and that might be deliberate. That might be because of the material. Like you might not be able to cut it as thin as you can cut aluminum. Might have to have some more mass to its structure, but even there, it's so light. Like I'm real anxious to see what that ends up weighing on something like a Proven or whatnot, which would be my logical solution to where they're going to go with it. But I don't know that for a fact by any means, but it would just make sense. And I would love to see that. I'd love to see Darton jump on that because their stuff's so heavy, right? If they can cut that down just by going to that, that'd be awesome. Because that bow's done really well this year. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know you're a fan.
Yeah, I am. Taylor.Shea75 says, best crispy early season / tack boot that's uninsulated.
Laponia 3, baby.
Laponia 3.
Love them.
You like those little short to the ankle ones? What are those called?
I wouldn't know because they don't make them in Sasquatch.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, so the Laponia 3, to me, I want some ankle support if I'm hiking in the mountains. Those little ones don't have that.
Yep.
Laponia 3s are light, and it's a soft sole, so it flexes a lot. So when you're like walking on dry things, you're more likely to feel it underneath your boot before you step down if you're walking real slow. And every pair of those I've got, I put them on. It feels like a slipper, like right out of the gate. Super comfortable, and they're not super expensive. I mean, a good boot's expensive no matter what, but they're on the reasonable side of things.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I'll traditionally wear those for half the year to 3/4 of the year. When it gets to short season, I run into some kind of hiker with some random brand because nobody with high-end stuff makes a size 15 hiker, like low ankle stuff like the Ativa that you're talking about,
Yeah.
which I wish they would because I would probably wear those this time of year, but they don't make them in a 15. But yeah, for my money, man, that's what I'm running. That's what I'm running for August till October, probably.
Yeah, and you might even be running them on a day like today. I see you wearing your.
Well, these are a little hiker just because of the shorts, right?
Yeah.
I do think it does look a little goofy, but whenever I go to attack, I still bring them.
Yeah, you're still wearing
because
your
I'm up in the
ankle highs.
mountains. Yeah, I want to have some ankle support, and that's the out of their entire line. If I could have picked one for them to make a 15 in, that would have been the boot I would have picked anyway. So
Yeah.
fortunate. That's my fave.
Yeah.
I know you're a fan of some other stuff, but
Well, I've been trending towards lighter and lighter. I think, and actually, who cued me on this the first time was Brian. I think it was Brian Barney. Brian Barney's like, I use the lightest damn shoe that I can hike around in. He's like, because you know what? If I hike 10 miles a day for 30 days in September, he's like, if I do that with a couple less ounces on my feet, he's like, that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of energy. And I'm like, yeah. And I really never felt like ankle support was a big deal for me unless I'm in really like gnarly stuff.
I have bad ankles.
Yeah. I've genetically been blessed with rubbery ankles. So I think if you need ankle support, you want to be ankle high for sure. Or if you don't need it, you can go into some pretty interesting trail hiker stuff. Zamberlins have fit my foot the best. I still put them on when I was bear hunting, and I was like, they're interesting boots because every time I put them on, they're a little stiff. And then after like 30 minutes of walking in them, it's like, oh, these things are like a dream. So they're a little stiff when I put them on in the morning, but they quickly loosen up, and Zamberlins fit my feet the best. And another brand that makes some interesting stuff I've had pretty good luck with is Salewa, Salewa.
I don't know if you're pronouncing that right, but I know which one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
Salewa. How else would you pronounce it?
I'm not sure. Doesn't make any sense when I look at it.
Yeah,
So.
but yeah. So my foot's like got a little more arch to it, not narrow, not wide, and those boots work. But boots are so weird because everyone's got different feet and shit, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Every foot's a little different, and Crispies have always fit my foot really well.
Yeah.
Even when all they made was like a Nevada and a Hunter.
A lot of people like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I think every person should own a pair of Nevadas, period.
Is it the most popular Western hunting boot, do we think?
Oh,
Crispies?
I would be shocked if it's not. I know Kenetrek did really well for a long time, but I think Crispies kind of overtaken.
Yeah,
If I had to guess.
Then you have all these brands that seem like a little more niche. Like, have you ever heard of like a Lathrop and Sons? Mm-hmm. And then I know this brand's not niche, but it's a brand that Meat Eater's always pumping out of Bozeman. Do you know which one I'm talking about there?
Yeah, is it Loa?
It's not
Which
Loa.
one is that?
No, but
There's
Loa's
one of them.
another one. But anyway, there's so many like these boots that make just like a nice Western boot, and I don't even know how you find the right one.
Well, interestingly, I know recently, I think a lot of them are talking about different ones, and I think it's because Crispy went away from endorsing people or having paid endorsement people for the most part.
Okay.
Like, they don't have hardly anybody on staff anymore.
Interesting.
So maybe they felt like it's worn its path.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's a good way to put it.
And I know certain people that had deals with them would constantly complain about the demands of how much output they wanted and how often they wanted to be talked about and that kind of thing. And I know it got stale for a couple of them, but I think they kind of dropped off everybody. Maybe they didn't feel like it was helping.
Yeah.
Or maybe they felt like they'd grown as much as they were going to grow through that path, so we're just going to stop doing that. So I'm not sure who's endorsing them anymore, but they make a great product, and I'm not an endorsee guy.
Yeah. You're endorsement free since 93 for the most part, huh?
That's right. No, 100%.
D_Jacob_88 says, and this is an interesting one. This one kind of tickles what I would like to get answered to. Why do PSC and other people think dynamic brace height determines a bow's forgiveness?
It's an interesting concept. I'm working on a way to measure it effectively because I don't think anyone is measuring it effectively.
Yeah.
I think they're measuring it in a way that benefits them.
Yeah.
The premise of it is that if you can move the axles back farther at draw from the grip, you're or where the string loads off the cam, the
Yep.
load out point. The farther you move that back, the harder the bow is physically to torque. And it may very well be true, but I think you have to measure it from the same parameter no matter what. So like I said, I am working on a way to measure that effectively in a kind of a tool for next year. And then I'll start playing with that.
Interesting.
But I also do think that if I had a company that had longer limbs, which is in general an older design, right? Like every year they seem to try to get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. I mean, Hoyt shortened their limbs by an inch this year.
Longer riser, shorter
Longer
limbs.
riser, shorter limb tends to be the
parallel.
trend.
More parallel.
And what hasn't PSE done? They haven't done that,
Yeah.
right? So that would show your dynamic brace height as being higher.
Yeah.
So it's the argument you would make. It may very well be true. So don't get it twisted. I'm not saying it doesn't matter or it's not accurate. Okay. But if you were PSC, that's the argument you'd make because your limbs are longer. So your stuff's going to sit back farther. And then that helps also eliminate how much reflex you have in your hand because when your limb is longer, you have to have more reflex in the grip to push the grip back with that longer limb to equal the same brace height. Do you follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's also part of why they're doing that is to try to make a 6-inch, 6.5-inch brace height bow. They have to have more reflex in the handle because the limb's longer, so the stuff sits back farther.
That's what I wondered if it was a little bit of a, hey, you want to sell something? You know, what's an angle we could take to?
Well, it could be very true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not. So I'm not making that argument. Now I will find a way to prove it or disprove it. Again, and then measure everyone equally, so you have a fair comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh.masick.outdoor says, guesses for what bow manufacturers will try and do this upcoming year. And I would say last year we did a pretty good job with a few of our guesses.
Yep. No, I think so. Do we?
So our batting average might be pretty good, actually.
Do we go brand to brand or in general?
I think in general trend. Yeah.
I think
Well, no, let's go.
you probably got to go brand to brand
Let's
because
go brand to
they're all
brand.
kind of gone different directions.
Let's try to keep it a little bit rapid fire.
So you mentioned one, and I'll guess what they're going to do.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Yeah. Let's start with PSD.
Oh God, that's the hardest one.
I know, because they've been kind of stale.
Well, nah, they
haven't changed a lot.
Not a whole bunch of change.
Yeah.
More of the same. I think you're going to see more of the same.
Okay.
I hope I'm wrong, but more of the same.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
PSC Hoyt.
I think you'll see Hoyt finally put some tuning features on their bow.
Nice.
Well, everybody else has damn near, right? So I think you're going to see some kind of either an easy shim system that you don't have to disassemble the bow to use or some sort of way around the Bowtech
Or
system.
maybe they license some technology or
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, but I think you'll see them address tuning this year.
Yeah.
We'll see, but I think you will.
The optimist in me thought that was going to happen last year, and you were right. You said Hoyt's traditionally slow to change.
Now Matthews changing kind of forces their hand.
Yeah.
I think.
I would say the optimist in me again thinks that Hoyt's going to put something out that doesn't. It's going to be like, wow, this is a new looking Hoyt bow, and maybe they do something with interchangeable grips. That would be one of my biggest gripes with a Hoyt, and then easy tune features.
I also think you finally see a riser change on the carbon.
Yeah.
If they continue to make carbon, which I think they will because they're relatively heavily invested in it, I think you'll finally see a change to it. Because it's been the same riser for several years.
Yeah. So we did PSC, Hoyt, Bowtech.
I think you see a magnesium longer bow. I think that's probably their main thing. I think you see the proven turned magnesium.
Yeah, I'm curious what kind of traction they get with magnesium. I could see them doubling down on the use of magnesium and offering another model or multiple models if magnesium is trending.
Well, I know it's been it's sold better than most of the other stuff this year,
Yeah.
but we haven't done a ton with them the whole year. So hopefully we're an outlier and they've got other ones doing well. But my guess is you'd see another magnesium bow longer version.
Prime?
Prime offered a new bow mid-year this year too. So that's tricky. Like either the sales weren't great and they offered a new bow, or they rushed it to market. So it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's pretty easy to take that platform and make it 30 inches instead of 34 inches. It's just change the length of carbon you put in it.
So no new tech, just a new length.
God, I'd love to see them do some tuning feature that's a little easier than what they got. I don't know if I think it's going to be kind of a little more of the same with Prime as well. I'd love to see some tuning features and some changes there, but if I had to guess, it's going to be more of the same.
Well, they took a shot, and I respect the shot that they took. I can't see next year them putting out a bow that's like, oh, this is new. This doesn't look like a Prime.
Yeah, I think we'll see a 32-inch form and redone aluminum bows.
Something of the nature.
Yeah, maybe a shorter Ronin, more of a price point. I could see that. Just off of what the systems look like. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see some tuning features incorporated with them, because yes, they have a system, but it's not super easy to use. A little more user friendly, but I don't think they'll do it yet.
Okay, Darton.
I think you'll see a lighter Darton. I think you'll see a very similar lineup with a lighter Darton and hopefully a longer Consequence.
Here would be my wish list for Darton. I would love to see them make, if it was a simpler version of the Consequence, as simple as it could be, and try to shove something in the $500 price point.
It's not happening.
No, this is my wish list, so I can wish for whatever I want.
You can wish for what you want.
I would love to see them do that, even if that for them it was a bow that they didn't make hardly any money on, because I think it would really. I think there's room for a bow in that category, and any major manufacturer could do it. But I think Darton's been the closest with the Consequence, which used to be at $650. They weren't that far off. I think if they could do it at a $500 price point or even $550. It's needed. Just something that's sturdy in that price point, whether it didn't have very many features and it wasn't very light, but kind of similar, built off the Consequence model. I would love to see that.
I don't think you're going to see a bow below $750 in Darton's line.
Yeah.
Period. I think you'll see like an $850 longer axle-to-axle version of it, which would be good. I don't think they have the manufacturing capability to produce something at that price point. Now, I'm willing to bet one of the big dogs do this next year.
I would love to see it, and I would love, even if they didn't make, from a company perspective, if you looked at it and said, we want to gain market share, what a great way to gain market share. Because if you bring someone into the sport with a $500 bow, I don't know what the odds are, but the likelihood they stick with your brand for a long time.
That was PSE's model for a long time.
It's very likely. I mean, a guy gets their first gun at 12 years old or 13, 14. I mean, how many more of that gun do they buy? It's a lot.
Like I'm saying, that was PSE's model for a long time, and now Bear kind of holds that market. Bear sells so many $500, $600 bows.
Yeah.
But are people coming back and buying $1,300
Well, and Bear
bears?
doesn't have like the graduated tier system where it's like, okay, you can get this entry-level bear.
Yeah, they do.
I know they do, but it's not happening. And then, so there's a difference. But you can get this really great bow to get you started, something that, is manufactured in a way that you can get it in that $500 price point. And maybe you can get it's good for 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 arrows, whatever that is. Not as long as a flagship might last, but it's going to get you going. But then the next thing, they have the flagship model, but it's not the most flagship model that most people turn to. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So can a company do both, where they offer the good budget bow and then the premium? I don't know.
I think they can, but they have to be the company that had the premium.
Yeah.
I think you can get that if you already have the name and you have the reputation and you're already winning the market share. Then you can come up with a $500 bow that everyone will embrace, and that's one area for growth for sure from the big players if they really focused on it.
Yeah. If you wanted to gain market share, I think that's a great.
And I would predict that one of them will this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be cool. I would like to see that. I think it brings new people into the sport.
Yeah. But I just don't think Darton has the buying power or the volume to do that.
Yeah.
Like you have to be punching out hundreds of thousands of bows to be able to get into that price point structure of market, because you got to buy your material so cheap.
Well, they definitely got a sniff of something interesting with the Consequence. The Consequence was a very, and still is a very interesting bow with a lot of brace height. Feels very good. It's sturdy, and it's in a price point that isn't a flagship. Right now
Right.
the current Consequence 2 is $750 retail.
Yep.
MAP, as we're more familiar with now.
Yeah, it's a term I think the entire industry might be a little more aware of currently.
We did get an MAP question in this series of questions, but our previous podcast was about that. So if you haven't heard that podcast yet, go back to the previous one because we do talk about that lawsuit deal. Okay, and then let's close the pod with Matthews. I'll go first because your opinion is probably more educated than mine. Matthews typically has a couple year product cycle where
We didn't talk about Elite, and was that it? And Bear.
okay,
Doesn't matter.
let's do Elite. I think we can handle that one pretty quick.
I think Elite revamps their weight a lot.
Oh, really?
I think they lost. I think their market share hurt from how heavy their bows are, and I think they're aware of that. So my guess is they vamp into a lighter product by a pretty good amount. I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful. That's what I think their future is this year.
Well, my guess was actually the opposite. I thought they were just going to put out another bow with similar looking products and features. The optimist in me would love to see them because they make good bows, cool products, and some nice technology in there. But I just think we're going to see a rebranded version of an Ethos and a 32 or something. I don't know.
I think I'm just optimistic. You might be
Yeah.
right, but I think they're going to focus on their weight and
Okay.
lower the weight of their product.
Bear, I don't know. I don't know what Bear does.
More of the same.
More of the same.
Well, I know a lot of their product line's China, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're dealing with tariffs, so they've got to reassess what they're doing. Like they might not be able to make the $500 bows that they were making because of the increase in tariff. Because I think some of that stuff's made over there. I know that all their accessories are, but I think some of their bows actually are, like the raw goods. No different than like the UltraView stuff might be assembled here, but the parts aren't made here. I think it's very similar with them.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Comment down below if I'm wrong. Totally cool with that. But I don't think they can come back at the same price points.
Now, Bear's riser material, that's called, is it called a composite? Is that what that's called?
They have stuff that's machined and stuff that's molded.
Molded, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, they have stuff that's
So
machined
they
and
have
stuff that's
they work
molded.
with like their cheaper stuff is a molded, right?
Typically, but almost everything's machined in their line.
Yeah.
Yeah, like their $500 bows are machined. Like when you look at what's there, you're like, how are they doing this? And no one else is.
Yeah.
And it might be the resource of, overseas. That could be why they're coming at the price point that they're coming in at.
Well, and I think they've experienced a lot of growth, particularly because of the hunting public, to be honest. The hunting public's been promoting Bear stuff, and I think they're a great group of people to promote a bow that can get somebody into the sport.
I don't disagree with that, but they're also the only bow company that's really focusing on making a decent $500 adult male bow.
Yeah.
An adult, not a broad adjustable, grow with your kid to a parent type of setup.
Yeah.
They're actually still making a $500 focused hunting bow, and God, nobody is.
Yeah.
Like the rest of it's just kind of like, So they basically every bow brand gave it up and said, "Here you go, Bear, you can have it."
So they're showing up to the basketball court. Nobody's playing defense.
Yeah, and I think you'll see a change in that this year.
I would like to see that.
I think you'll see somebody
it'd be good
show
for
up
the
for
industry.
defense, and they might have hired the All-Star team. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to Matthews, the granddaddy. Matthews typically operates in a couple-year product cycle. Would you call it like a 3-year product cycle where
I typically, let's see, when do we start seeing
the riser and the limbs and the cams are going to look pretty similar for 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I think we'll probably see similar stuff too, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
But they added a tuning feature. They'll definitely change the bow somehow.
My guess I think is the end of that product cycle onto a new product cycle. I think we will see a bow that looks fresh to them. But the evolution of their bow, if we looked at the last 10 years, it's kind of morphing towards I don't know how much more they can do in that category as far as making the risers longer and the limbs shorter. I don't know. But I do think we'll see a new looking Matthews bow next year. If it's just a modern iteration, maybe it's different than that.
I definitely think the aesthetics of the bow will change a lot because the aesthetics didn't change at all. So from a marketing standpoint, I guarantee they went into it this year going, we need to make this bow look different because our bows looked identical. Like don't get me wrong, way better bow than the previous year, but it didn't look any different.
Right.
I think there'll probably be a new cam. I think it's time for a new cam in there, possibly. And what I'd love to see, and I don't know if we'll see it, but I'd love to see a 31-inch axle-to-axle bow again. And they came out with a 27.5-inch axle-to-axle bow this year. So Matthews, you would normally make two different axle-to-axles. They'd make a longer and a shorter. And that was at one point like 27.5, 28, and 31. And then it shifted to like 29.5 and 33. I'd love to see that middle size come back in again because that's a great size of bow for everything hunting. Now, granted, it's probably not something you want to go shoot 3D with or target, but longer, like tree stand, ground blind, or Western style hunting, a 31-inch bow is pretty dope. When the riser gets so long, like it's a great size, especially if it didn't peak at 30, if it made it to like 30.5 or 31. I think I'd love to see that. I don't know if you're going to see that. I definitely think you're going to see a different looking bow, period. It's not going to look anything like what this year looked like. I don't know if it's going to be any lighter. Personally, it might even go up a little bit. I'll be surprised if they make it lighter than it is.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they can. I think it's at the limit of what they can make weight-wise. So traditionally, I bet you it goes up just a little bit with whatever aesthetic changes they make to it. I'd be surprised if it doesn't functionally have less vibration or less noise, because every year I test them, they get less. So I'll be really shocked if that's not still a focus. I'd love to see a timing feature, but I don't think we're going to see it this year.
I was going to say, I think industry-wide, I was going to make that prediction, is somebody's going to either iterate or license Darton's timing technology, and we're going to see that on a couple of the flagships. Either something different that they make and patent on their own, or maybe Darton, they can work something out with Darton to license. But I think we'll see another version of that on another. That's an industry prediction.
Yeah, last time I talked to them, they didn't seem like they wanted to license it, which I think is dumb. Like, I think they should. I'd love to see it. So many of the cam systems would easily incorporate that. It wouldn't take much to add that feature, and I'd love to see that across the industry. But I think Darton might want to hang on to that as their own thing and say, "This, if you want this feature, this is where it's going to come from." And they hold so many patents.
Well,
it's wild.
My little conspiracy theory is that that timing feature creates a little extra cam speed. And with speed being so competitive, I think that's the reason they don't want to license it, because it might kick out an extra couple more feet per second.
I don't agree with your theory. I don't think it does at all.
That's fine.
I don't think that's it.
But that's my conspiracy theory, and hey, maybe it's true.
I guess we'll have to discuss what it would take to disprove that in your mind, so I can get you to stop saying that, because I don't think that's accurate at all.
Well, I think we would just have to take the same bow and then remove the timing feature and then test it and see if the speed changed at all. Because we could get a string,
yeah, you could do that.
You could get a string manufacturer to make the.
Honestly, the way that loops through there, you could probably find a part that you could just put in there in its place and loop and pull and go, like the PSE thing, where it's got the loop through it. Well, it's got the hole through it, and then the yoke over. You could probably just remove one, put in the other one, and test it and see if it actually does anything. I don't think that's doing that at all.
Maybe. Anyway, that's the pod.
Fire's out.
Oh my God, the fire's out.
It's private out for a while.
Just like that, the fire's out.
I got to plug that sucker
cold
in.
brew review.
Yeah, what do you think?
This is...
I'm out, so it's good.
This is smooth. It's nice. It is stiff. This is a stiff, high octane.
So I should have put some more water in yours, is what you're saying?
No, it's nice.
Oh, okay.
I would give it like, on my cold brew scale, I'll give it a 7.7. It's a very nice cold brew.
I'm going 8.1. I thought I nailed it. That was awesome.
Yeah. High octane, it'll get you revved up for the day. And that's the pod.
Yeah, buddy.